All right, so we're going to begin with the mount portion of the submission DVD. And the first thing we're going to start with is one of the most fundamental, usually the first submission you learn from mount, and that is the arm lock. There's actually two arm locks we're going to teach from the mount. There's the standard Gracie Armlock, and then there's the one from the S-mount. What I've found is that a lot of people have a lot of trouble these days with the standard Armlock, the Gracie Armlock. And that's because most schools that I've found now just teach the one from the S-mount, or they teach some sort of hybrid version that's really the worst parts of both. It's important to learn both because both solve different problems and have different pros and cons. So the Gracie one, the reason it developed is because they were thinking about training people who weren't other BJJ, or fighting people who weren't other BJJ people, and if you mount those people, the tendency was for those people to try to push you up. These days, most BJJ schools are thinking of just training against other BJJ people who are taught to not push up to keep their arms in. And that's fine, except for the fact that almost 7 billion people on the planet don't do BJJ, and so you need to learn how to deal with their responses, not the BJJ guy's response. And the two responses are different, and I've seen people have trouble fighting an untrained person because they haven't trained for that reaction. So the advantage of the standard Gracie Armlock is it deals with this very, very common reaction, and it works off of speed. Okay, the S-mount deals with the training response of keeping the arms in. It's slower, but it has more control. The disadvantage, of course, is it's predictable. You see the person setting up, you see it coming. So you have to learn both. The reason most people have trouble, in my mind, with the Gracie one and teach just the S-mount one is the mechanics required are you have to learn how to spin your body. And for many people, they don't want to put the time in to learn how to do that. It's easier to kind of take this shortcut with the S-mount. So we're going to cover the mechanics of that spin so you really get this down because it applies to so many other things. So it's important that we understand that both types are tools and you need the right tool to deal with the problem you're confronting. Now, there's another thing people say, well, nobody good ever bench presses you. So I get people, upper belts, that bench press me all the time because why? We have a very pressure-based game, right? Yes. I don't sit up where it's easy, where you're breathing. I'm smothering them constantly, not letting them breathe. And even good guys, I say this all the time, black belts make the same mistakes white belts make. You just have to put a lot more pressure on them to do it. And so I get people bench press me all the time. So you have to master this, both techniques. I remember training with this instructor one time. He told me he doesn't teach his students the standard Gracie Armlock because it doesn't work. And then I asked him to show it to me, and when he went to do it, he fell over. And it kind of showed me that the reason he didn't think it worked was because he didn't know how to do it. And that's kind of the basis of this instructional. And I want you to understand how to do these things so that you can make them work, not just write it off and then go on YouTube and look for another move. Okay, so the first one we're going to start with is the standard Gracie Armlock. Okay. As with all the submissions, we're going to start first with a cue. And what I mean by that is an indicator of what submission I should try to use, because jiu-jitsu is lazy. So I want to take what he's giving me. So we have to recognize, the quicker we recognize our opportunity, the more effective we can capitalize on it. Okay, so it's important when you're training to not just go through the moves, but recognize the cues. Okay, in the PDF that comes with this instruction, we'll also cover what I call staging areas, which are places of control where I can maybe slow down, look at my options, think about where I need to go. Don't ever move if you don't know where you need to go and how to get there. So we'll have the cue, the staging areas, and then we'll have the transitions. How to effectively move from one staging area, point of control, to another staging area, point of control, because that transition is often where you lose a submission or anything, a sweep, a pass, anything. And then finally, we'll do the execution, how to properly finish the submission. You have to master all of these points. Okay, so the first from the mount, when I'm here, is he bench presses me, okay, right now. So again, there's only 3 joint locks. There's hyperextension, hyperrotation, and hypercompression. In this situation, he's done most of the work of extending his arm, so I'm just going to continue that work. I'm not going to fight it and try to do something else. So I want to encourage him to keep his arms locked. So the first thing I want to do is put all my weight on his hands. Okay? If I take weight off his hands, he can pull back. If I do this and he feels like he wants to pull back, I'm going to smash him in the face with my body. And so I'm encouraging him to keep it. Lastly, I need his arms in the correct place when I land for the submission. So I want to have his hands directly over his shoulders. If I try to arm lock him right here, when I fall, I'm going to be nowhere near his shoulder, and thus I'll be too low on his arm. Okay. So the way we do that is very simple. I'm just going to rock my body forward until his hands are over his shoulders. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do is support my own weight, because that way I have a point of movement for myself. Just because I'm doing this, I don't take weight off his hands. I roll forward, my hands are light on him, I go around the arm I want to attack. My hands can either make a cross, or I can actually have my hands facing away from the arm I'm attacking. Here. Okay. So the other thing that I want to focus on is I want to look down. Okay, if I tend to look up, my body straightens, I take weight off of his hands, and also when you go to spin, you'll tend to fall away because the weight of your head will pull you back. So I want to keep looking down here. From here, now, this is a basic kind of our position. Okay, I'm going to step my foot up. My foot's right in his armpit, not down here, right in his armpit, toes pointing completely to the side. I'm not inverting my foot. I'm planting. I need 2 points of base to pick up my third point, which would be my leg. So if he does this, and I try to grab his arm and put his foot, there's no way, it's very hard to pick up that leg. Okay. So we're not going to grab the arm. Plus, if I do this, I'm telegraphing what I'm doing, and he's much stronger from this position than I am. Okay. It's not the hand I'm trying to submit, not the wrist. It's the elbow. So just doing this, he can move his elbow, he can pull it in. You're not going to submit this. We're going to use our body to control his elbow, which you'll see later. Okay? So I want to step up, rock, and then here. So we talked about, and you'll see that the rotation is the key to this technique. The ability to take yourself from being with spinal alignment to a cross perpendicular position. Okay, this is where everybody has trouble. Okay, so what they try to do is they try to just throw their foot over. The analogy I use is a Muay Thai style kick. It's exactly the same. If you can do the kick, you can do the arm lock, because the mechanics are the same. First thing I want to do is turn my foot. That's going to allow my whole body to rotate, so we're not like this, just like we did from the mount. Now, what I'm not leading with is my foot. Okay? I'm going to lead with my head, my shoulder, my hip, my knee, and finally my foot. So I don't kick like this. I step, head, shoulder, hip, knee, foot. So when I kick, it's here. It's not this. The same motion is going to happen in the arm lock. I'm going to pose, head, shoulder, foot, knee, and then the leg will come around. So if you ever want to practice for the arm lock, you can actually just practice with each other with kicks. Here, then he leads with his head, shoulder, here. Same exact mechanics, and we'll see that here. All right, so now we're going to work on that spin. So again, the cue is what? He bench presses me up. Okay, exactly what, again, 99% of the people on the planet will do. So we have to learn how to deal with this. He bench presses me up. I put my hands, I rock my weight forward, my head is down, I step my foot. This is my base, this is my base. Now, can you get you to turn this way? 2 things people have trouble with is, again, they throw the foot. So let me show you what that looks like. They step up, they throw the foot, and then they try to work around. They're thinking about the foot. The other problem is people spin around the shoulder. So it's very important. If I spin around the shoulder, I'm going to fall away from him. I'm going to give space for him to escape. I'm going to have a hard time landing correctly. I'm going to allow him to bring his elbow back in. So we want to control all that. So when I step up and I spin, I lead with my shoulder. You see how as soon as I start doing this, it starts driving his arm across his body? That's important. If I spin around his shoulder, I fall away, I don't drive his arm across his body, it's easy for him to get his elbow to the ground. So again, this is an elbow lock. I need to drive his arm across, and I'm actually going to sit on his chest. So my spin point is the center of his chest, not his shoulder. Really focus on this. So I step up, I lead with my head, my shoulders, my hip, my knee, and now you see how I'm sitting on him, and then I slide. Let's do it this direction. So I go here, rock forward, foot, I lean, my foot flips out. If he tries to pull his arm back now, you see? Now, I said that I want to step my foot. Okay, I don't invert, but as I lean, my foot will invert a little bit. But I don't want to start inverted because now I'm sitting on him. Now, again, I can't really rotate. I actually don't want weight on him. Okay. So I rock forward, foot right in the armpit, rotate, hip, shoulder, knee, foot. Now, see, I can sit right here. Now I slide down and I land perfectly right close to his arm. I still have control of his elbow. My body is what locked his elbow in, not grabbing. Okay. So, I'm not spinning here. I actually want to sit on him. Okay. One thing, when I step up, as I start to spin, my head will come up a little bit in order to straighten his arm out. So at first we're here, not my head, my body will straighten, my head still looks down. So my body's straightened a little bit to lock, so I'm not hunched. Like sit, I sit, and now if we were to call it another staging area, this is our second staging area, okay? So we're in prime position. I'm completely perpendicular to his shoulders. I'm not down his body. I'm not away from him. And again, notice by spinning here, driving his arm across, keeping my head looking down. I don't do this, where you fall back away. See how far away I am from him? Also, notice how far away I am from controlling his wrist. So we're here, step, rotate, drive his arm across his body. That's our motion. The leg does not step over his head. It actually just wants to swing north of his head. I sit. Now when I sit, I'm hunched forward. Any space between his wrist and me is space I have to fight. Right? So now we're going to be in a fight position. I want to keep. Okay, so again, his goal, certainly when he starts getting caught in the arm lock, is to try to bring his elbows into his body, open his elbows, flare his elbows. I want to not only keep his arm straight, I actually want to keep it across, because when I do this, it makes it much harder for him to flare his elbow. I go like this, and I spin, there's that chance. He can get it to the ground. Okay? So really practice spinning and sitting on him. And think about when you sit here, you slide down his arm. See how his arm stays across his body? That's what I want. Okay, so I step up, I pivot, I sit here. Notice I have not grabbed the arm yet. Don't step up and then try to grab the arm now. Again, I don't have a lot of control. I've lost control of him. That's not going to do anything. For now, sit all the way on the ground, and then we'll address grabbing the arm. Okay. So we're here, step, I pivot, and sit. Okay. Now we can look at finishing the arm lock. Okay, so the things we have to understand is some of the ways he's going to escape. He's either going to pull it, if there's enough space, pull his elbow in. He's going to push my leg off his head. Okay. Or he's going to turn his hand. some sort of way. Those are sort of your major ways that people are going to do this. The other thing is we want to always maximize our submission. So the thing I want to first start doing is control his arm. Okay? So the way we're going to do that is I'm going to pinch my legs. Okay? If I keep my legs open, there's too much play here. Okay? Also, if I keep my legs open, I lay back. You see how his arm is all the way locked out and still there's not really a submission? And you can actually hurt yourself. This is why people now are trying to go over the thigh. Okay? The simple way to do that is I pinch my legs. Now to have maximum pinch, I'm going to cross my toes. I'm not crossing my feet because my knees actually don't get that tight. I cross my toes and now my knees. I want his arm to actually lock right when my inner thigh starts to get bigger. So when we sit, first thing before I even fall back, I lock my legs. So now you'll see that's where his arm locks out. So from here I can even submit him with one hand. So I'm not falling back and then pinching. As soon as I land, I pinch. He tries to pull his arm down to the ground or move it, it's very tight. Toes crossed. Okay? This also makes it push my leg off your head. Makes it harder. If I'm like this, here. So we're just making our toes tight. Now, something I teach all the time to my students is you're never strong in two directions at once. Okay? So I want to do this. I want to extend his arm this way, but if I only do that and he resists, we're going to have a battle. I'm also extending his arm this way. So I'm not just doing this, I'm pulling as I extend. This means he has to fight this motion and this motion all at once. Okay. Lastly, I'm not going to fight his arm with my arm. Right? There's a hierarchy of body strength. Arms are weaker than legs, legs are weaker than back. I want to use my back and I want to use my body weight always. If you're on top, as much as possible, always use your body weight. Okay? So I'm not going to fight him with my hands like this. Okay? I'm going to use my body weight and my arm. So I have to really focus on two things. Having enough force to take his arm back and stopping him rotate. So what I want to do is I want to catch, not his wrist. If I catch his wrist and we're sweaty, he can turn. Also, I'm not at the end of the lever. Fight. Yeah. I'm going to slide up, catch his thumb, the meat of his thumb. I can even put my thumb inside his, but sometimes I just catch right here. This does two things, right? Now I'm at the very end of the three things. Now I'm at the very end of the lever. If he wants to turn his hand, I can stop that. Also, grab your hands together. Here, if I'm like this, he has a natural grip. Once I come here, I kind of cover his hand, making it hard for him to grab his hand. So this is stopping the rotation. Okay? Now, again, if I do this, I'm pretty strong this way, not as strong as I could be, and no rotation, so we stop the rotation. So we're here, knees pinched tight, I slide up, catch the wrist. So now I have a lot of control of the rotation force. I'm at the very end of the lever, but now we want to reinforce. If I just go like this and he's really strong, I'm going to have trouble. Okay? So my other hand is going to come, and we're going to make a V right in the crook of my elbow. And I want to slide up and catch. Not down here, I slide up all the way till I catch my hand. Okay? Ideally, my hand that's on the hip side controls his hand, my other hand controls the V. It's going to make it a little easier for our finish later. Okay, here. Now my knees are pinched. Now what I don't do is just lay back like this with my body curled. It'll absolutely work. Okay? I want to extend his arm. What I'm not going to do is actually pull his shoulder off the ground, per se. I'm trying to extend this joint. I'm trying to pull this joint out. My leg's locked, so I'm not pulling through my legs. I just want to pull from my leg up. So when I go here. Okay? So my back straightens. I engage my back. I don't want my lower back to hit the ground. I want my upper back to hit the ground. The motion's going to be here. My upper back hits the ground. This way I'm using my whole body weight against the end of his lever. So from here, I'm pulling very much. I'm not punched. I'm pulling. Knees are pinched. I slide back. I put my shoulders on the ground here. Okay. This, pull your hand back to your body, is the strength. I don't have to use muscle. Once I lock like this, This structure is what's going to hold. If I just, let me show you, make a curl. If I hold here, I can pick him up. If I hold here, I can't. So by locking it in with this V, we don't have to use any muscle. He's connected to us. Now lastly, I don't want any separation from his hand and my body. So I don't want to do this, fall back, and then try to fight like this, back to arm versus arm. So before I go, I get everything as tight to me as possible. I try to keep his hand as close to my face as possible. I don't want it to slide way down my body. It'll slide a little bit, but that's okay. I lift, I stretch. Now watch my feet, they curl. Here. Okay? So even if he resists, there's no strength involved. Now, one last little thing. As I lay back, here, there may be some slight chance again of him turning or rolling his body away from me. Here. So as I land, sometimes maybe this leg gets a little light. I'm drawing it in, I'm keeping it heavy. But we're going to make it a little bit worse by taking his thumb a little bit this way and laying a little bit towards his legs. This lets me put more weight on this leg and makes it harder for him to roll away. So as I go, I'm going to start to turn my right shoulder to the ground. See, now I have a lot of pressure. He tries to sit up now. His leg is heavy. I go like this sometimes. See, there's space here. So we're here. He bench presses me. I step, I spin, I sit, I catch, I lock. Notice again, my back is straight. I'm pinching my shoulder blades. I'm looking up behind me, not down, not crunched. I lay back, I turn, I step down. So just as a final review, the whole point is when he elongates his arm, straightens his arm, I want to try to keep it as straight as much as possible. Okay? So I recognize the cue. I bring my body weight forward. All my weight is hanging on his hands. I step up, so I'm going to be in alignment with his shoulders. I pivot head, shoulder. Look how I drive his arm across his body. Hips, lock his elbow. You see? Leg swings around. I sit, knees pinch, catch the thumb. Notice again, I'm lifting, always keeping his arm straight. Don't want to ever encourage him to bend his arm. Knees pinched, tight, right above my thighs. I catch, I lock. So now if he tries to grab his hands, it's not there. I extend, I'm pulling. I'm laying back, rotating to my right shoulder. My foot is curling in. I'll even put my toes on the mat here. And that's our basic arm lock from the mount when they bench press.